Yo, before Barney the Dinosaur was even a thing, there was a prehistory going on. Denver hit the scene and made a bit of a fandom for himself. And today we're talking with someone who could be the club president, having gone the extra mile in his love of dinos. Rock on with us right after this killer tune.
Let's go back in time. We can just hit rewind. What a terrific notion. It's cartoon commotion.
Hiya friends, I'm Cade, your favorite cartoon weirdo, and this is my banjo-playing little pig buddy, Jiggy. On our show, we rewind to the tunes of the 80s and 90s for a brand new perspective in your life nowadays. Friends, nostalgia today is the feeling of coming home, and Jiggy and I give you a house tour, pointing out all those neat little details you might have missed while you were busy growing up. If you subscribe, you'll notice that we regularly stream our show live 2 times a month on Facebook and YouTube, and every now and then we sprinkle in bonus content. If you're listening to the audio-only version, or you're here for the replay, make sure you drop us a line with those comments, and we'll get back to ya in a jiffy. If you need to get in touch with us, check out cartooncommotion.com. That's typed out as one word, and the link will be in the show notes or video description also. Thank you again, that's cartooncommotion.com. And real quick, we are brought to you by the fine folks of the Cereal Box Network. They have a great Saturday morning show called The Back of the Cereal Box. I tend to be a regular guest on their show whenever I can join in on the fun. Jiggy joins me as well. Yeah, I made sure to tell him, buddy. That's The Back of the Cereal Box. I join in on the fun every now and then. That's hosted by Johnny Beyond, the magical master of Saturday Morning Fever. Joining us on today's show is Spencer. Man, I am not even going to attempt to say your last name, Spencer. You can pronounce that for us in a second. I know it probably comes easy to you, but I am terrible with names, and that'll come out all wrong, okay? Spencer is a Mondo huge fan of Denver The Last Dinosaur. He's also an experienced freelance writer and journalist, as well as a biologist. In his own words, he admits that he used to sit too close to the television while playing with his toy dinosaurs. Ha! An epic origin story indeed. Hiya, and welcome to the show, Spencer.
Come on, it's Spencer Bolletary. It's not that hard.
Bolletary?
Well, get used to it. We're going to be saying a lot more difficult words like Stenonchosaurus.
Wait, this sounds like stink on. Stinkonosaurus?
Yeah, don't you know it's in the same clade as the Do You Thinkysaurus and the Do You Thinkysaurus Rex?
Do you think I love this. Are these just dinosaur puns, or are they actual dinosaur names?
No, mostly dinosaur puns.
I love it. We need to have like a blend of the two in most, we just need to put that into our regular vocabulary.
Well, as soon as I discover a dinosaur name, I'm going to call it the Stinkonosaurus.
That'll be your discovery, your contribution to science. That's great. And folks, this is live. So besides totally unplanned quirks, we also have a genuine live chat. With that, let's check in with our friends. We do have a comment from Galaxy Unicorn Art. She says, "Hi, Cade." Hi, Galaxy Unicorn. Thank you for joining us. And friends, everybody in the chat, drop these, drop your thoughts, drop some messages for us, because if you're here live, I'll put them up on the screen, just like Galaxy Unicorn Art here, and we'll reply to those. If there's anything at all that you'd like to point out to us at any time, make yourself heard in our chat room. Thank you for being here, Galaxy Unicorn, and anyone else who joins us, please make sure, drop your comments in the chat. Okay, before we get into our convo, we need to get started with the breakdown. Denver The Last Dinosaur aired from September 12th to November 22nd in 1988. And boy, oh boy, did it have strong 80s vibes. It aired in syndication for 2 seasons of 50 episodes in total, following the adventures of Denver and a group of teens that he befriends. After they discover him in the La Brea tar pits, he hatches from a magical petrified tar egg when one of the boys, Mario, attempts some sick bike tricks and cracks it. The boys quickly form a connection with the rad-tastic dinosaur and take him back to Wally's place to hide in his pool shed. Some more notable main characters are Jeremy, the surprisingly brainy one, and Shades, who hardly ever removes his shades. And then there's Heather, Wally's older sister, and their neighbor friend and the mechanically inclined Wonder Girl, Casey, who's constantly being left out due to her being the youngest in the group. This show was a blend of dino data and social values, but more on that in just a minute. All right, let me take that screenshot down. Real, for anyone who's just listening, the screenshot is actually the Polaroid-style picture of the group of friends with Denver. Denver, Jeremy, Wally, Casey, Heather, Mario, and Shades are all pictured in this picture. That was at the end of the pilot for the show. And it's also used in, every credit sequence, and I think even in the opening a little bit. Is that right?
Yeah, along with that awesome intro song. I mean, who doesn't get that theme song stuck in their head?
Oh yeah. All right, but before we get into our convo, we gotta have Jiggy strum us into our main topic. Friends, prepare yourselves because this is our main topic. The heart of a friend. Get the background music going here. This is Mondo Perfecto, man, because previously on Cartoon Commotion, Jiggy and I went over G.I. Joe, The Heart of a Hero. If you missed that, Spencer and friends, everybody here, I hope everyone can go back and check out the replay of that later. But anywho, here and now, the subject is the heart of a friend. Spencer, before I peel away at this and dig into what it's all about, what about Denver really appealed to you the most? Was it all just the dino aspect, or was there anything more to it that kept you interested?
Well, as a kid, I absolutely loved dinosaurs, and Denver just had everything I could ever want. Dinosaurs, rock and roll. It was like, I probably found it in the 90s, but it was just like the 80s incarnate, and it embodied everything I grew up with, the dino mania at the time.
Yeah, it definitely was a strong, 80s representation. Right on. You are so totally Superfan material, and if you're not already the president of his fan club, Spencer, you really should be.
Well, I'm a member, actually, because for a while they actually had a Denver The Last Dinosaur fan pack where they would give you the full series, a shirt like this one, and of course these totally awesome official Denver The Last Dinosaur shades.
Dude, those are sick. They look like they could be... Okay, wait, I know Denver's on that shirt. Show us.
Okay.
Show us. You gotta get up here. They look like they are his shades, man.
Yeah.
That is a great combo pack. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I absolutely loved it, yeah.
Okay, so you had mentioned before to me in a message that you wanted to describe how you got into the show.
Yeah, so growing up, there was actually, probably nobody remembers this, but the USA Network used to have something called the Dino Power Hour. So they would show reruns of Dinosaurs and Denver The Last Dinosaur back to back.
That is, I was thinking about doing some sort of dinosaur marathon with Dinosaurs, and there was another show too, Dino Riders.
And Dink the Little Dinosaur.
And what?
Dink the Little Dinosaur.
I haven't even heard of that one. I have heard of Denver, which is interesting because there's not a whole lot of love for Denver. There's not a lot of people talking about it most of the time. So
yeah.
We're trying to change that tonight a little bit.
Yeah, but anyway, real quick, the story did continue. After they took it off the air, I went to a local Blockbuster looking for episodes of Dinosaurs, and sure enough, 2 VHSs of Denver were there, and that became my go-to rental from that place.
So you got it. So wait. So after the marathon, so this was just VHS tapes that you would have on repeat.
Yeah, because they took it off the air even back because when I got into it, would probably be around 95 or so. So
Okay.
of course by then it was in reruns and it just didn't spawn as much popularity as some of the other shows on the air, so it just disappeared.
So when the reruns didn't take off, you got it on VHS and you would just watch those over and over again.
Yep, from
Man,
Blockbuster.
you're the perfect specimen of a fan of this show. To where like your dedication to this show is so great that you would repeat watch this even after it's been pulled from the. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, personally, I would describe this cartoon as a bit domestic in its tone, kind of like in the style of a sitcom or even a PBS Kids show, but with a little bit more plot. Okay, a lot more plot than a PBS Kids show could offer. Things I noticed really picked up with the writing in the third episode. That one was titled Video, and I actually do have a screenshot of that one right here where they're talking over Wally's sister's Heather, her video camera, and they were debating on whose video they should create with her camera. I feel like this was the first time that we really got to see these characters' their personalities come up to the surface. Before this episode, for me, I really connected with Mario. Mario was the only one that stood out to me in their group prior to this. Then again, I don't think this show was really focused on hooking you with the depth of their characters. It was more about the social values and dino education. What's your take on the overall tone of the show, Spencer?
Well, the best way I could put it is it was kind of like Barney with a little more edge.
Barney with edge.
Because
That's an interesting way of putting it, definitely.
Because you had the social values, you had the education, you had your big dinosaur friend, but I don't think I have ever seen Barney go after car thieves or go into, what was so it was I think like diamond smugglers in the Caribbean or something.
They definitely had much more well-rounded plots that applied to more areas in life than Barney could.
Yeah.
But Barney was aimed, I think, even at a younger audience than this.
Yeah, probably.
And it took place years after this. This was 1988, and Barney was for sure in the 90s.
Right.
And as a super fan, did you ever give the tone of this show much thought? Or was this just part of why you liked the show so much?
Both. Looking at it now, it probably aged faster than that cheese you left out on the counter. But it just represented a time and place that doesn't really exist anymore, and it's not the Mesozoic era. Like again, it's the 80s, it's the 90s. It was just that dino mania where we could turn on the Learning Channel and see Jeff Goldblum narrate about dinosaurs, or you could go watch dinosaurs on ABC.
Right. Yeah, dinosaurs were a big part of the 80s. I mean, they still are a part of animation and entertainment, but 80s, I mean, with Jurassic Park and all that, just kind of picked up.
Right.
I can dig it. Just I think that overall the show was way more casual than a lot of 80s cartoons were. It doesn't have too much major action going on, and that's not really a negative for me. It's just that it totally focused on the mellow cool over the epic cool. I showed Denver's intro to a friend of mine recently who had never heard of the cartoon before, ever. And they said that it was the most 80s thing they've ever seen. And I do have a screenshot somewhere of that, but I can't find it right now, so we're just going to have to move on from that. I really can't say that they're wrong about this. It was so distinctly 80s. Like you said earlier. What it lacked in action, it definitely made up for in its design. I loved the use of the camera, and what I can only describe as electrified sequences of neon.
Oh, absolutely. That was one of the best aspects, especially in the intro where you see the dancing dinosaurs and all that. It was really, it was like that glam rock and roll mixed with, the dinosaur aesthetic, which was just so cool to see,
Yeah, I do. It was visually exciting. I've got to bring the background music down a hair because I'm hearing it's drowning you out, I think.
Oh, I apologize.
No, it's fine. It's just my background music's a little too loud and funky for your tone. It's covering you out. It's drowning you out a little bit. So we're just
Okay.
going to bring that down just a little. I think this was a major montage of 80s radness with neato visual effects where characters moved closer or further from the viewer in this sort of tunnel vision.
Right.
The art direction for this was just absolutely bodacious. I am really curious to think what you think of the visual style of this, Spencer.
Oh, I always love the what's it called? The neon colors. I loved even the dinosaurs, which are like so outdated now, how they look and how they acted. But and just seeing that sunny California suburb was actually really cool. How they painted all that with,
Yeah,
Yeah,
visually, very visually pleasing. We've got some screenshots up here. This is the group: Jeremy, Wally, Mario, and Shades in the order from left to right. And Shades accurately representing the shades. And
he's not
the
only,
thing,
he's rocking them. Get it right.
I love, yeah, you're right, accurately rocking the shades. But I love that this character's entire identity is wrapped up in his eyewear. No, it's not like again, it's not negative, but it's just, I point these things out with love to the charm of 80s cheese, because he's rocking Shades. His name is Shades, or at least that's how he's referred to. Like, they hardly ever use the real name. I don't even know his real name.
Well, it's funny because I remember the episode with the pen pal where they switched names and Wally's is Shades. Why do they call you Shades? I'm just really into blinds.
I'm just really into, and I can picture him saying, "I'm just really into blinds." Okay. That's great. That is great. Yeah, I really dig the whole visual feeling of it, and the music too. But the thing that I think made this stand apart from most 80s tunes was the bad guys.
Oh,
We'll get to that in just a minute, Spencer. I know you're dying to talk about the bad guys. We'll get to that in just a minute, because right now we've got a few more live comments coming in from our friends in the chat. Let's see what's going on.
bring them on.
Callie Hawkins says, hey, good evening, Cartoon Commotion. Happy Saturday. Hiya, Callie. Frost Comics, hey, Cade. Hey, Spencer. Glad to see you as a guest. I was just on a stream with Animane last night talking 90s cartoons. We had a blast, but Denver didn't come up. Well, that was actually... So this came out in 1988 first, and there were reruns in the 90s, as confirmed by Spencer. And he got them on tape. And so you might have to go back to the beginning of the stream later on to catch the intro. We did break that down pretty good. Dalton Wright says Denver is a mutant. Okay.
Oh no, that Professor Fun debunked that in the first episode.
You're right. He said that he was not a genetic mutation or a copy. It was the real thing. Callie Hawkins says, boy, Blockbuster and VHS equals memories. Yeah. Oh, Blockbuster, how we miss you. Oh, the scars of stores gone by.
It hits you right here.
It does. It makes you emotional. Alright, so, as I was saying, unlike most 80s cartoons with a main foe to thwart, like Dr. Claw, Skeletor, or my personal favorite, Cobra Commander, this cartoon had like two mainstay repeating villains. And, then they cycled in some other one-offs, but they weren't really the expected 80s villains types either. They were more on the corrupt and greedy businessman type, without the outlandish plots or excessive power trips. They fit in with the atmosphere of their adventures pretty nicely. And we do have some screenshots right here. The main baddie that is referenced at the beginning was... Or not referenced. The main baddie that came up at the beginning was a rock promoter, Morton Fizzback. It's a great name. You gotta love the sound of Fizzback.
Oh, love it.
It pops with such a grossness. Fizzback. I love neat sounding names like this. I'm terrible at pronouncing names, but this is just so fitting. He was designed to be like Rodney Dangerfield, the 80s hit comedian. How did you feel about his character, Spencer? Was this a fun reoccurring foe, or did you think he's more like on the annoying side of things?
Oh no, I absolutely loved him. He was just such a fun bad guy to play with. All the schemes he'd come up with. Trying to create his own superhero, the fearless Fizzo, trying to create the monster of the Lost Lake or whatever that was. He was just such a sleazy character, and you just loved. You was someone you loved to hate.
Oh yeah, yeah. I found myself really enjoying the thwarting of his plots, and that's the kind of villain you want. You want a villain to come back that you don't hate to see on screen, like the plots you come up with, you enjoy seeing them being thwarted, and so he definitely fit the bill there. I think he really could have done this. At least in the first episode, his whole music act thing, the whole rockin' dinos, in a super chill sort of way. If he just asked the kids if they'd like to be a part of a rock and roll show with Denver as the star attraction. I mean, am I wrong, Spencer?
No. I mean, he didn't even need the dinosaur, but Fizback was the kind of guy who went big or he went home.
That's true.
He never
wouldn't settle.
He never halved anything.
He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it halfway. He wouldn't settle for animatronics or anything like that. He saw a dinosaur, he wanted the dinosaur. But the boys probably would have been down for that sort of thing. I know Shades would have been, because he was the type to act cool no matter what. And Mario is such a ham, he'd have worn a dinosaur costume just to be in the show, or even try to get a stuntman act thrown in the mix just for the fun of it. Ugh. Jiggy, I know. Ham is just an expression, buddy. It's not literal, okay? Okay, I won't say it again.
Strong opinions.
Apparently it's insulting. I'm sorry, Jiggy. Fizback, moving on. Fizback, was his deal really all that evil? I don't think so, not quite. But because he captured and took Denver from them, he automatically placed himself into that bad guy category. And I just think that the only reason he got there was due to his dishonesty.
Right.
Oh,
but eventually he did go for some real supervillain stuff. Like the last episode in the series, he actually creates an ice age just to sell all this winter stuff to California.
That is true. That is so. He had maybe on occasion the outlandish plot.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they were less outlandish. They were more landish.
Yeah.
than outlandish. But okay. So towards the end of the show, he got a little bit more on the supervillain angle. But early on, it was a little bit more grounded. Yeah. I think Jiggy has something to say, so I don't want to ignore him. He's gonna get mad at me again. Oh, yes. That's right. Fizback went and sold Denver after this to Professor Funt. That was right after his Rockin' Dino show, and we do have a screenshot of that right here. And that's Professor Funt looking at Denver through his iron cage that he's trapped in. So this is where Fizback, he sold Denver to science and without any care for his life. And this first episode was an hour-long pilot, and it got us set up with both villains right away. But they don't both appear at the same time very often. It's kind of like a rotation of sorts. And I like that, because then it never got incredibly predictable. It depended on who they'd bump into or cross paths with during the episode that you're watching. Professor Funt wasn't much of a mad scientist, he was more like a desperate scientist. And I felt sorry for him, because he wasn't very capable as a bad guy. What did you think of him and how his character was written, Spencer?
Don't you know all scientists know how to play the accordion?
Yeah, you've been referencing that for a while. That was the Battle of the Bands episode, season 2, episode 13, right?
Yeah, but he was the stereotypical scientist, and I also felt bad for him in some respects, because he was a scientist, he was brilliant, but he just wasn't a very good scientist.
No, he wasn't very capable. But could you give us a little bit more context about the season 2, episode 13, the accordion bit?
Oh, so like you said, once in a while they team up, and in one episode, one of their friends, Freddie, invents like a bunch of Robo Rockers, a band of different musicians made of robotic parts, and then his controller was an accordion. So when Fizzback and him are stealing it, he's saying, "Hey Doc, do you know how to use this?" "Of course! Don't you know all scientists know how to play the accordion?"
Would that automatically make Weird Al a scientist, or the other way around? Maybe Weird Al teaches all the other scientists? I love it though. Like, all scientists know how to play the accordion. And that's a pretty good impression too.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but I mean, like, I kind of like Denver being dubbed the Funtosaurus.
Well, it's like you telling me because it's fun, right?
Right, he gets in this cage and he's like, "Eureka! It's a new discovery. He'll be called the Funtosaurus," and then because he's kind of like a fun-loving dinosaur, so maybe like he could go with Funosaurus, or if they stuck with the music angle, maybe even Funkosaurus.
Funkosaurus Rex, I love it.
I am getting carried away. But I think you mentioned somewhere else online that you do know Denver's actual classification as a dinosaur. Is that right?
Yep. Let's keep this a secret now. That Denver is
secret,
actually...
dude, bro. We're live. There are people watching on the internet. There's gonna be an audio podcast after this with this all recorded. So if it's a secret, I wasn't prepared to share secret information. But you know what? This is a wild Saturday night. Let's do it. Let's do it. Share the secret information.
Well, from what I can gather, that Denver is actually a Corythosaurus, which is a duck-billed dinosaur who had the really funky, I want to call it a crest, and its name literally means like helmeted lizard or something. Okay. And I do have something to show everybody. Ooh. He was a hadrosaur. Denver was a hadrosaur, and I actually have a rib bone from from a hadrosaur species from somewhere out in Montana.
Wow.
So like I said, as Mario would probably put it, he's like Denver's cousin twice removed.
Oh, gnarly! Can you bring that up closer?
Sure.
And what did you say it was from again? What's it
a
called?
Hadrosaur, which was
Hadrosaur.
A herbivorous dinosaur from the Cretaceous era. And
I thought it was interesting. Like during the show, they're trying to get him to eat leaves and stuff, but then they find that he actually likes chips.
Well, the Ninja Turtles had pizza. The Street Sharks had burgers. Denver likes potato chips.
Every cartoon character, honestly, even Biker Mice from Mars, they liked hot dogs.
That I didn't know.
Like they all have some food gimmick, and it probably has a lot to do with my eating habits today. Right on. Big brain time with high-level education talk. I think I will stick to the cartoon archaeology and leave the dino trivia to you.
It's probably for the best. Denver the Last Dinosaur is totally outdated by today's standards and did not know its dinosaurs.
Yeah, so you were telling me about that in a message privately. What about the dinosaurs? Did they get mixed up?
Like, for some reason, they thought the Tyrannosaurus was the biggest, but something that they corrected later. They also had some dinosaur, they called it the Karate Champ, Stenonchosaurus, I think that. It is.
I loved Karate Champ. Whoa, that sounded pretty cool. I think I'll put that in the report. So what was wrong about the Karate Champ? Was he not really an expert in karate?
Probably not. They did get one thing right, that it was probably one of the smartest of the dinosaurs, and I think I heard somewhere that it probably had the intelligence of a coyote.
How tall did they say that was? It was like
5
less
feet,
than
I think.
5 feet?
Yeah.
So about as tall as a short person.
Yeah. But it's funny
and it could
because,
run really fast.
Yeah, because it's funny because NASA actually did like some kind of weird speculative evolution, and they showed this thing as a human being, and it's creepy. You gotta look it up.
Oh dear me, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I mean, I'm just processing that it's not good at karate. That's a lot to process in one day. Okay. Okay, before we continue, I gotta take a quick sec here to remind everyone, friends out there listening and watching the show right now, no matter if it's live or on the flip side, if you've got homies who would totally dig a rewind to this tune with their crew, do us a solid and tap that share button on your screen. Let's get them in on the action and crank this commotion up to an 11. Alrighty, now back on topic. I am glad that this cartoon did not, got it, reframe. Back to the supervillain villain talk. I am glad that this cartoon didn't have the exact same villains for every episode, because it never felt bogged down with predictability and all that.
Right.
They did obviously team up like we were talking about, but Fizbak's schemes were in the style of spectacle, and Funt was about proving himself as a scientist. Funt actually planned to perform experiments on Denver, completely uncaring to him as a living creature. Let's go back to that screenshot real quick. He did not care at all. He was a messed up kind of evil right away, that's for sure. Now, personally, I liked the thwarting of Fizbak's schemes over Funt's, because then the boys could expose him as the big-time phony that he really is. Like in the first season's 4th episode, you had mentioned just a little while ago, the monster of Lost Lake. The boys hatched a plan that used Fizbak's own scamming ways against him, making their own lake monster costume, and this is a screenshot of that from underwater right here. They made this costume of the monster, and then Bigfoot shoes, and we have a screenshot of that also, that they wore around the lake. Now, the interesting thing is that this is both supposed to represent Denver to throw people off the trail, because Denver was the one making the footprints. He was the one that was like in the lake. This is actually a pretty complex storyline. It was not a very cut and dry, easy story to write, and I appreciated that. Because it didn't insult your intelligence. It's like, oh, this is actually something that kids could do, but more on that in a minute. They made these shoes to get the tourist campers to see that Fizbak was conning them all, and I think that was very clever. The plots would occasionally go in these radically creative directions, and I think that was because they weren't relying on cartoonish world environment stuff as much as normal comedy cartoons might have. Like, it barely used gimmicks that you would find in Looney Tunes or anything of that nature. Physics felt mostly realistic. We do have another screenshot here. This is this is a screenshot of the guys hiding Denver in the first episode from the neighbors as they're walking him to stay in the old school gymnasium. So this situational comedy where they had to hide him, I think this forced them to be more creative with their solutions, being in a realistic sort of physical environment where, you know, things weren't easily fixed with like no gravity or something weird like that.
Yeah.
These are things that, like I said, actual kids might have been able to do. I mean, apart from hanging out with the real living dinosaur. Do you know what I'm talking about here, Spencer? Like, how the plots were resolved. What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love, how realistic some of it was and how clever, like, in one episode, Freddy takes Denver to the mall and, they're saying, what? He's totally out in the open. Check his back. I glued a zipper to his back so they think he's a man in a costume.
I was actually thinking about that as a solution. That's awesome. Which episode was that?
That was the Battle of the Bands.
That was in the Battle of the... I gotta see that one now. I just, like, it sounds to me like that might be a highlight episode.
Yeah, and again, it's like you said, it was like very real scenarios. Like, they're exposing Professor Spunt for cheating on a game show with Morton Fizbak by giving him the wrong answers, and he had like an earpiece. Or, what was it? Another one. Sorry, it's slipped my mind at the moment, but...
It's okay. There's, 2 seasons to work through here. There's a lot to go over, so some things will slip in and out of memory. It's totally understandable. So, like, the resolutions, continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, or even like another one of my favorite was Comic Book Capers, where you actually see like, Fizbak as trying to be a hero for once, even if it's for the money. And I love, they exposed that the guy made this fake comic book that he was trying to pawn off all this money, and they kind of proved that it was a fake,
Yeah, it's just the the very real aspect of like just trying to prove a phony. Like
Yeah.
I feel like that is very much achievable. Like in the third episode video, they caught the car thieves, and,
Right, with
and
the
they caught them
camera.
on camera.
Yeah.
I mean that is something that a kid could actually do. I mean they went a little bit further by having the dinosaur there, having the dinosaur Denver scared them off, but otherwise everything was something that somebody could actually encounter.
And that was creative too, because I love the end when the police show up and they're worried that they're gonna find Denver, and he disguises himself as one of the cars.
That's great. Because, like, all the cars were designed to... What were they? Like, Hollywood-type cars? Because you had, like, the Wienermobile...
Right.
And some other gimmicky cars. I think one was for a circus.
Yeah.
But then, like, Denver just curls his tail up and puts, like, tires around his legs. And the cops that come in to take down the crooks, they're just like, oh, look at that. It's a dinosaur car. It's great. Oh, Jiggy is reminding me that we have a few more live comments, and yeah, I do see
Okay.
that. Hang on just a second, Jiggy.
No problem.
George Bueller of Fanatic Forum, a great show on the network, says, howdy, folks. Hiya, George. Thank you for joining us tonight. George Bueller says, the thing I remember most was the sort of ridiculous intro? Oh, well, we were actually talking about that at the start. It's very iconically 80s. It just screams 80s, and I love it. I love the vibe of it. If nothing else, the vibe is fantastic. Spencer, you
Yep.
said at the beginning you loved the intro. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on George's comment there.
It's probably one of the most catchiest theme songs out there. I mean, you could just jam out to it at any time. And you better get
I
used
can
to it
see
because
that.
they just play it over and over throughout the show.
There was in the video episode, actually, the video episode, Denver comes up behind Jeremy at his computer, but just before he does, Jeremy is actually singing the song. And actually, you know, that's a good tangent right there, Spencer. Why don't you talk about, like, the use of the theme song? Because, like, what we're talking about here is a song that they actually used in World, where Fizzback produced the song.
Yeah, in the first episode, Fizzback did his Rockin' Dino show, and that was the song he came up with, Denver The Last Dinosaur. And then it just keeps getting played throughout the series, sometimes in the background, sometimes in Worlds, like you see played at Dino Land theme park. And that I thought was kind of cool, you know?
I think it's great because it's sort of like in Gem and the Holograms when they would produce the physical cassette tapes for girls to collect with the dolls. It's sort of like bridging the gap of reality here, because what you have is a theme song that opens the show, but all of that came from the theme song was in the first episode, in that stage and everything. That was all produced in World. So it's kind of like a fourth wall breaking moment at the beginning of every episode, if you think about it like that.
And it highlights one of
cool.
the best scenes in the whole show, the Rockin' Dino show.
He does that with the guitar. I remember there was this one time where I can't remember. I think it was Denver Makes the Grade. He's doing the exact same guitar moves, but with a rake in their backyard. And I can remember as a kid playing with rakes like they were guitars, and like, because we have a lot of trees around our area, so it's like I was always raking up stuff, and every time we would go out and rake with it, I would pick up the rake and I would sort of jam, and I love that sort of naive, carefree, fun attitude that Denver just embodies in this show. And it's just that is the heart of the character, because all the adventures typically point back to them caring for taking care of Denver and keeping their friendship together. Like, most of the time, the plot is them trying to make sure that Denver is not only safe but cared for. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I think you described it perfectly. It's all about that fun, very innocent, carefree attitude. I think you told me before, like, it's like that child experiencing the world for the first time.
He is very much in the childlike state of mind. That is true. But we were talking about plot resolutions.
Right.
The boys hiding Denver from other people. It takes me back to the screenshot where they're hiding him from the neighbor. the boys hiding Denver from other people, that was a regular source of comedy in this cartoon. Dressing him up like a person or hiding him in a cart that they covered in cardboard boxes to shield him from the public. And it's funny because he's already been seen so many times, like we were talking about in the rock show and everything, by people. Like, in public, that I sort of, at times I started to wonder why they even bothered. But then again, I guess they had to try to protect Denver, and that's what they did. The boys and Casey, and even sometimes Heather, Wally's sister, and let's go back to that screenshot with them in the Polaroid picture. They all went to great lengths to keep Denver around. And all they really wanted him for was their friend.
Right.
Never using him. Well, okay, gotta put this out there. There was this one, the one Denver Makes the Grade. They did attempt to use Denver as their model for the project, for their science project, but then I was impressed with how they were able to both protect the secret of Denver, but then also tell the truth about the fact that he wasn't their model. Because Mario did not want to confess that Denver was actually not created by them. Like, he was posing as a dinosaur at the exhibit, and, you know, Mario did not want to come out with the truth, man. But then, you know, Jeremy, the brainy one, surprisingly brainy, honestly, but by the looks of him, I did not immediately get the brainy aspect, but his brain shines through. He came to his senses. He's like, no, we're not going to lie to our teacher. We're going to tell the truth. This is about honesty. So they went to the teacher, and Jeremy almost blurts out that Denver is an actual living dinosaur. He's like ready to confess. Well, we sort of found a real... And then Mario cuts in, and he's like, he's not our model. We found this model. So, like, he's covering up the truth with the truth, and I think that was just unbelievably genius. Last minute truth telling.
Yeah, no, we just kind of found him. Yeah, that's it. We found him.
Yeah, we found him just laying around. And can I just say, that's Cam Clark. Cam Clark is doing Mario. Let's go back to Mario's screenshot here where he cracks the egg. Cam Clark did Mario here. This is 1988. 1987 was the first miniseries of TMNT. And Cam Clark is Leonardo from TMNT. Now, I cannot help but wonder if he's doing an impression of Townsend Coleman doing Michelangelo.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it sounds very much like the same voice, man.
And then it's funny, you had Rob Paulson on the show, who many people know as Pinky from Pinky and the Brain, and then you also had Jim Cummings do a couple of characters on the show.
Mm-hmm. But we also should note that Rob Paulson was Raphael in the TMNT show.
Oh, yeah, right. He was.
So, like, what we have here is a combination of those cartoons. And these were a lot of the big timers. And Casey even had, I forget her name. But
Casey.
Kat, thank you. She was a big name, too. She did multiple shows. I think she was in My Little Pony and Care Bears and all kinds of things.
Ghostbusters.
I think she was the voice of Janine. Yeah?
Yeah, the second one.
She did the second one. Okay. Right. I remember. Oh, we're not going there again. That's a whole other conversation. But we'd be talking about them all day. Q5, right. That's them.
Oh, God, you do not use that word around me.
What word? The one with the letter and the number combined?
Yeah, that's it.
It has like a tail and then there's a 5 near it. Should I not touch that with a 10-foot pole, Spencer?
A 20-foot pole.
Oh, well then you might not want to go back and hear our Real Ghostbusters episode with Super Cool. And that's Q with a Q, because it's cooler. Okay, so besides that incident where they had to be honest, they never really used Denver for their own advantages. But they did everything in their power to give Denver a good life in the modern world of 1988. You gotta dig the value of friendship that this tune promoted.
Right.
And Spencer, You sent me some pictures. You too have gone to some great lengths to keep your friendship with Denver alive and well. In a manner of speaking, you actually went to the La Brea Tar Pits, and I've got these pictures of your time there. What was that like, and did anyone there recognize Denver on your shirt?
Well, it was funny. Through Comedy of Errors, I ended up in California covering a Jurassic Park event, and me and my friend said, "Listen, we only have time to do one thing we both want to do." And I said, "You know what? Since I was 5 years old, I wanted to go to the La Brea Tar Pits because I love Denver so much." And I actually went there, and nobody there recognized Denver. But when I got home and I posted it on my Twitter, the La Brea Tar Pits actually used one of my pictures where it said, no dinosaurs were found at the La Brea Tar Pits for dinosaurs.
And we do have that screenshot here as well. This picture. Note to our guests: no dinosaurs were excavated here at the La Brea Tar Pits. And you say?
Well, it's true. I mean, the oldest thing they found, I think, was like 38,000 years old, which,
No, you say, except for Denver.
Oh, right. Yeah, no,
except
I posted
for
that.
Denver.
and it's funny because the La Brea Tar Pits responded to that. "Oh, yeah, we forgot about Denver."
We forgot about Denver. That's sad. But, dude, okay, this is awesome. So, this is 5-year-old you fulfilling your dream.
Yep. I took a pilgrimage to meet Denver the Last Dinosaur.
So, since you were 5, okay, clarification. 5 when you were watching the VHS tapes from Blockbuster.
Yep.
So, since those early days, and the Blockbuster halls picking up your VHS tapes that you would rewind on repeat, you are now fulfilling a lifelong childhood dream, basically.
Absolutely. I mean, I just couldn't believe it that I was finally there because, it might have been as distant as the surface of the moon for me because, I didn't, nobody in my family really flew, and we weren't driving across the country to see the La Brea Tar Pits.
That is quite the achievement. I mean, it's definitely, I don't want to phrase it like bucket list item because you're literally standing where so many dinosaurs have died. Or should I even say dinosaurs? Because the only one that has been found is one that's alive.
Yep.
Alive and well. Denver. and now he's hiding in a pool shed. But, oh man. I love this. I love this story of childhood fulfillment. And you're rocking out here in this picture with is that a cane? What is that?
Well, at the time I fractured my knee, and that almost kept me from going to California. But my doctor said no, it's fine. I used it to get around.
You were oh wow, you're in a state of this is a really big moment in your life then.
Yeah, no,
a lot is going on at this time.
It felt like felt natural. I just picked up the cane and I started doing the pose from Denver, and I said, "You know what? Get a picture of me doing this."
If you could do that move that he does with the rake in the yard where he jumps with his foot out in front of.
Yeah.
I know it from pop culture, but the thing that I remember it most from is probably the scene in Back to the Future.
Oh right, yeah.
With Marty on the stage. Definitely. It's very iconic. And that is literally what he does on repeat throughout the show. Friends, we absolutely love making this show for you. I gotta say this before we wrap up the episode. Jiggy and I do major hardcore research, and we make sure that when we go live, we present you with the quality that we are looking for in the shows we watch. To help keep Cartoon Commotion fun-fueled and ad-free, head over to one word, cartooncommotion.com. Right on top is our Buy Me a Cookie page. Well, it's actually a Buy Me a Coffee page, but we changed it to cookie because Jiggy and I love cookies. And you can give a one-time donation or subscribe for loads of bonus content. We'll even give you a shout-out in the credits of every show. So thanks bunches for being here with us, friends, because our friends here are the commotion in Cartoon Commotion.
Yep, our friends. You're our friends and a whole lot more.
Oh, that's okay. That was a nice little segue you did there. The thing is, though, I gotta say this. He never had to be anything more. Like, honestly, I'm watching the show, I'm digging the show, and I don't think Denver ever had to be anything more than a really good friend. And he was. To the boys of our story here, Denver was their fun-loving dino friend. To Fizzback and Funt, Denver was something that they could profit from. Truth is, Denver's tune is a friendly reminder to keep that fun-loving and curious side of ourselves alive and well. Any closing thoughts and places on the internet people could find you, Spencer?
That was deep, beautiful. Let me just say that.
Oh, thank you. I try.
Well, yeah, you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me at CBR. I'm Spencer, or even Theme Park Magazine. I'm Spencer Balotelli. Once again, I'm your friend and a whole lot more.
Epicness! Alrighty, folks. Jiggy and I hope that you enjoyed the show. And as always, keep it unreal, Commotion Crew.
Stay tuned.
Before you go jumping over to some other piece of content out there, if you really enjoyed this podcast, please share it with a friend. Or even someone you'd barely consider a friend, or perhaps someone you'd rather not be friends with. Just share it with anyone who might enjoy it, because friend, you were a part of this. You put the commotion in Cartoon Commotion. Much like our Patreon supporters, Eric Grant, Marsha Sullivan, Carrie Cube, Cade Utterback, and ToyStalker.com. And just in case you forgot in the last 60 minutes, this show is brought to you by the fine folks at the Cereal Box Network, CerealBoxNetwork.com. Again, all I ask for your time here is a quick like and share to your social media platform of choice. There's literally a share button on everything. It doesn't take longer than 20 seconds, and every bit helps get the word out about this podcast. Now then, play us out, Jiggy!